And then Tim, let me know when you see it live on YouTube. Good. Okay, fantastic. All right, here we go. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the presentation tonight. Coming to you on a YouTube live stream via a Zoom call that we are all sitting in. So I think there's a little bit of delay on the viewer end of things. I'm Andrew Guilford. I am the principal here at the International School of Beaverton. And tonight we're going to share with you some general information and also some specific information about ISB, especially as you decide whether or not you would like to enter the lottery for the ISB middle school. And so tonight's presentation is focused on the middle school. And if you're more interested in the high school, there'll be a little bit that we talk about, but really not a whole lot of details. But there's a number of videos now from past meetings or past presentations on the website that you can go back and look at, as well as feel free to reach out to us if you have questions that aren't answered here tonight. We're going to go through our presentation, which takes probably about 45 minutes or so. And we'd ask that if you want to hold your questions until the end, and then what you can do is put those questions into the chat as part of into the YouTube live stream chat. And one of our teachers here will kind of moderate those questions and vocalize them to us here on the Zoom, and we'll answer them. He may answer some of those in the chat itself directly as well as we go along. But like I said, we'll present, and then when we're done presenting, we'll spend some time answering whatever questions you might have. And then if there's questions you do have that don't get answered, then like I said, feel free to reach out to us later on here at school, and we can answer those questions. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. All right. My team, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see what's on there? Fantastic. Fantastic. So like I said, once again, welcome. We are here representing the International School of Beaverton, an IB World School, which we'll talk about a little bit what that means. I want to start off by doing some introductions. Like I said, I'm the principal here, and I have been at ISB for about 6 months now. I just started this summer, so this will be my first full school year here. And the thing I asked our staff to share as they introduce themselves is what they missed during pandemic times that they are happy to be back for and happy to be seen now back at school. And for me, one of the things I missed most during that pandemic year, I guess we're still in the pandemic, but during last year when learning was all online, one of the things I missed most was having students learning made visible. And what I mean by that, it's so amazing to be walking through the halls right now and hearing the strains of our choir, of our band, and especially the 6th grade band, and listening to the growth they've already made in the few short months. To see student work hung up on the walls and get a sense of things that they're doing in class, just to be able to look at the learning that's happening and see that in a very visible way. Glad to be back in person and being able to do that. And Scott, you want to go next?
Yep. Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Gladney. I'm the assistant principal at ISB, and I am going on my 10th year here. One of the things that I missed that I get to see on a daily basis now are the kids. We have amazing kids here that span, 7 different grade levels. And I love to see them interact. I love to see them longitudinally. I love to see them grow as little humans and just taking shape into these amazing people. But I think the smiles, the laughter, the community that's built, that's what I missed, because we didn't quite have that. Now that it's back, it's amazing. I will turn it over to Jack.
Hi, my name is Jack Rossing. I'm the 6th, 7th grade counselor at ISB. This is my first year here. And what I miss most about pandemic times, I miss watching the kids run around. I like seeing what kids naturally gravitate towards, especially out at lunch and that kind of thing. Seeing what sports they like, what friends they engage with. Like stay inside, be on the computer. I love seeing kids in their natural environment. It's just cool to see all that in one place. So yeah, definitely happy to be back. Tim, I think you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tim Forgione. I am a 6th and 7th grade language arts teacher at ISB, and this will be my 5th year teaching at ISB. One of the things I'm really happy to see again in the classroom is actually the process of students working on assignments. In the past year, I was able to see student work like in its finished form, but this year I get to actually watch them in the creation process and help them out a little bit more in a hands-on way, point out things that are going well with their assignment or their project, point out things that could improve it in the process along the way. So I'm really happy to see that again and to be able to feel like I'm helping more in the moment. And I think it is resulting in a lot more impressive work this year. So happy to be back in the classroom. And Webb, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Webb Thomas. You may have just noticed that my name changed to William just a minute ago, because if you email me, I have to be William because that's the rules. But I go by Webb. I am a science teacher. I teach mostly 6th grade science and 1 7th grade science. This is my 28th year of teaching, my 21st year in Beaverton, and my 3rd year at ISB, although I haven't spent a whole year at ISB. And it's a lot like the situation your kids have been in. They haven't done a whole year in school. What I missed during the pandemic was actually seeing kids, because some of them would attend Zoom class but never turn on their cameras. So I wouldn't recognize them, you know, for anything because they never turned on their cameras. So I think being able to look kids in the eye and have them look me in the eye makes a big difference. And I miss the company of other educators too. Educators are my favorite people, so I like to see them and I like to spend time with them. So I think they're terrific people, and so I'm honored to work with all these people who you see here today. So, hello.
So I wanted to start by sharing the ISB school mission, in part because truly it is the goal that we aspire to, the sentiment that we try to embody on a daily basis. And I know for many organizations, the mission is really just words on a page. But I think at ISB, this is something that we truly take to heart and use as guidance for our decisions that we make, and use as a template for determining what we need to measure when deciding whether or not we've been successful with our students. The way that I have structured, or we've structured the presentation tonight, it's going to kind of follow along thematically based upon this mission statement. The phrases that you see highlighted there are the things that we'll be talking about as they relate to ISB's middle school. So giving students an international lens and teaching them intercultural respect, ensuring that there is intellectual rigor happening, and then talking some about the service that we provide for our local and world communities. So I'm going to take a moment to just read this mission out loud, and then you'll be able to sort of use it as a tracking device, so to speak, as we go through the presentation and use those phrases as our touchstones. So our goal at ISB is to encourage students to learn through an international lens as thoughtful, compassionate world citizens. We actively embrace intellectual rigor, intercultural respect, service to our local and world communities, and the promise of a peaceful world. So ISB is an IBO, or International Baccalaureate Organization World School, which means that we have been authorized and are periodically accredited by the IBO, the International Baccalaureate Organization. And the programs that we offer here that are part of the IBO are the middle years program and the diploma program. The International Baccalaureate Program, or the IB program, both the MYP and the DP, are programs that are recognized around the world as being rigorous, as teaching students to have a global lens, and as being connected internally, meaning that the concepts and the ideas that happen throughout the IB program are integrated with other ideas throughout the courses that students take. ISB is sort of two schools in one. And what I mean by that is not so much a middle school and a high school, but a middle years program and a diploma program. You can see there's overlap. ISB has a middle school, which obviously you're interested in, which is why you're here tonight. And middle school, like all the middle schools in Beaverton School District, is grades 6, 7, and 8. We are a high school, so we also have grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. But the IB middle years program, the curriculum, the instruction, the projects that we do, the service that we do, the middle years program actually runs grades 6 through 10. So it's a 5-year program at the end of grade 10, students receive the middle years program certificate, assuming that they've completed all the requirements. Then we have a 2-year program called the diploma program, which are for students in grades 11 through 12. We're going to talk more about the curriculum as we go along, but I want to emphasize the notion that what we are designing and planning in the middle years, grades 6 through 10, is for the purpose of, in part, preparing students to be successful at grades 11 and 12. So while we have a standalone middle school and some students stay for high school and some students leave after middle school, the alignment of curriculum that's happened in grades 6, 7, and 8 are taken into consideration. It's done with the projects and the work that students need to do also in grades 9 and 10, and then ultimately in the diploma program in grades 11 and 12. So this large diagram that you're seeing here kind of tries to take all of the IB middle years program and put it into one image. You'll note that at the very center of the diagram is the IB learner profile, which are a series of characteristics or a series of traits that we ensure that all students have as they come through ISB. In our next slide, we'll talk more about that IB profile a little bit. You'll note that right around the students that are in the middle are approaches to learning, approaches to teaching, global context. So these are kind of the big picture things. All students engage in action and service. Service learning is part of our curriculum 6 through 12. Students do a community project in grade 8. They do a personal project in grade 10 that tie into the service and tie into giving back to our community. Kind of that middle towards the outside ring there show all the different core content areas that our students are engaged in. We'll talk some more about those also as we go along. And with that all, we ensure that through our curriculum and through the action and service that students take, there's a sense of international mindedness and a lens with that as they go. So the IB learner profile are these 10 characteristics that are woven through everything that we do. Some of that shows up in very direct ways during our advisory classes we have. Some of that happens in more instructional ways and content areas. So English class obviously is going to be ensuring that students are strong communicators, both in their writing as well as in their speaking. Science class is going to ensure that students are strong inquirers through their lab skills they're learning and the ways they ask questions. And I would add that also overlaps with the social sciences and also overlaps with math. At our core, we hope that students are caring. We hope they are principled. And we want them to be open-minded and have that sort of international lens or that global lens to things that they do. So these are sort of, while these are human characteristics, they also reflect, I think, a certain set of values that we hope to instill in our students as we work with them in grades 6 through 12.
So one of the ways that we have an international lens, obviously we're unable to go out into the world and take international trips, but we try to bring the world to our students. And we do that through a variety of ways. We often have visitors, international visitors, whether they're students or organizations that come and either do demonstrations for us. They meet with some of our classes. We also have pre-pandemic, I guess, we have had international teachers, native language teachers that come and visit us and stay with us, stay with our families and help our kids learn the world languages that we have. And we'll get into the world languages in a little bit. We also have a couple of sister schools that we have been in regular contact with over in Japan. We also have I'm bobbling right here. I think our biggest asset is our students. Actually, we have a large number of languages that are spoken, 48 languages that are spoken in the homes of the ISB families. So where we find the intercultural respect and where we find that international lens is honestly in the cafeteria, in our hallways, not just in our classrooms, but the way that kids learn and grow from each other and see their differences as an asset and they learn from one another. So, and lastly, we have a couple of things every year, Culture Week and International Night, both. Those are kind of like the flagships that we have, where we have up to 40 guest speakers that come in, and students can choose to sit in on different speakers throughout the week. And then International Night is put on. It's like a large school fair put on by our world language national honor societies, our upperclassmen who put those on. So we have a variety of ways that we share our international lens and our respect.
I'll talk about sort of the daily schedule and what it's like on a daily basis for ISB students. So ISB follows a high school block schedule with 4 classes on one day and 4 classes on the alternating day. You'll notice on this slide that A days are odd numbered classes, so 1, 3, 5, and 7. And then B days are even numbered periods, 2, 4, 6, and 8. The courses fit into the framework of an A day, B day schedule, which is kind of like this master list of whether it's an A day or a B day. It's kind of confusing at the beginning, but kids get a hang of it as the year goes on. And on those A days and B days, they meet for 87 minutes in those classes. So students make fewer transitions during the regular school day, but the length of class period may be a consideration for some students and their families. So thinking about, is 87 minutes a tough time to sit through, or is that doable? Do you like that? That's something to consider for sure. Students are assigned to one of 3 lunches. 6th graders are grouped with other 7th through 10th graders for lunch, but typically don't have lunch with 11th and 12th grade students. In the example shown on this slide, this student has first lunch, so they would have lunch right after their second period, but sometimes they might have second lunch, which would fall in the middle of 5th period, or they might have third lunch, which would fall after 5th or 6th period. The other thing I want to make sure to mention is that we have a thing called advisory and access tutorial on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So that makes the class period slightly shorter. I think it shortens it by about 10 minutes per period. And it's similar to like a homeroom type thing where they have the same teacher for advisory and AT. It's an opportunity to have some lessons about health and wellness, about information on upcoming events, community service, things like that. And then access tutorial is just a solid 45 minutes of time for students to work on homework or class assignments that they need to take care of. It's a great time to make up tests if you were absent, and to get extra help from teachers. Teachers might request to meet with a student during Access Tutorial, or a student might request to meet with a teacher during that time. And that's another thing I'm really happy to have back is our in-person Access Tutorial time, so that I can meet with some of my students that I think could use a little extra help in some areas, or that I just want to check in with. I'll also talk about our intellectual rigor at ISB. All of our courses are aligned 6 through 12 in order to prepare students for the upcoming grades and to go to college or university or a career after they're done at ISB. So in 6th grade, students will have a visual and performing art. In 7th grade, band becomes a year-long course. In 8th grade, 8th graders choose a year of one of the visual or performing arts. And then courses also focus on developing content area knowledge, as well as communication skills, reading, writing, speaking, critical thinking skills, and self-reflection skills.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our world languages. A couple of things I want to point out. First of all, we have 3 languages that are taught at ISB: Spanish, Mandarin, and Japanese. One thing we are not a post-immersion school. Many folks come to ISB having previous language acquisition, either through an elementary school or through other avenues, or even home language. But when we're talking about acquiring a world language, we're talking about something that's brand new, not something that they have necessarily previous experience with. So we're not a post immersion, I guess, as one of the things that we often get the questions of. Typically, when 6th graders enter ISB, they get an introduction to 2 of our 3 world languages that are offered. And it could be Spanish and Mandarin, Mandarin and Japanese, Japanese and Spanish. But you get just a taste of them, because by the time they get to 7th grade, they're going to be asked to choose one language of study, and that would be a high school level year 1 language of study. And so we don't want them going into it blind. We want them to have kind of an idea. So that's why they're given 2 just real light taster courses of the 2 languages to see if it would be a right fit for them. And then, as you can see, as they go through 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, the language levels progress. And then by the time they get to 11th and 12th grade, they get into the IB world languages. And that's where they can choose to be either standard level or higher level. The very last piece over on the right-hand side, and this isn't until 11th and 12th grade, and I know you've got not 11th and 12th graders, you have probably 11-year-olds. But if you do have previous, or if you have other languages that you have studied, you can do what's called self-taught. And self-taught would be where a student might have a native language where they have been educated in that language. And it'd be like a language arts class, except in a different language. We have some students that do like German or French, or some that have done Spanish, a variety of different languages, but it's more of a language arts class versus a world language class. And if that's your case, talk to me in about 5 years, and we can get more details about that.
One of the things I would add to the world language information is that at ISB, world languages is not an elective. It's truly part of our core content, and we require students to take a world language class full year starting in 7th grade. Even though they may have satisfied graduation requirements for the state of Oregon, as an ISB student, they need to continue to take a world language every single year that they're with us.
And thank you for that, Andrew. And I'll also jump in with that. That might be a theme you'll be hearing throughout too, because like to graduate high school, you don't need 4 years of mathematics, but at ISB, students are required to take 4 years of math once they get to high school. Every year you're taking a math course. But we're going to back that train way up, and we're going to talk about sixth grade. In general, our sixth graders have two entry points into math, and and both of them are accelerated programs. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see what's called Math 6-7. That's traditionally what most of our students enter. And it's an accelerated course where they cover all of the sixth grade learning targets, and then about a third to half of the seventh grade learning targets. And then going straight down from there in seventh grade, they would do the rest of the seventh grade learning targets, and then all of the eighth grade learning targets. And then by the time they're in eighth grade, they'd be in what's called AGS 1, which is an algebra, geometry, statistics 1. And then ninth grade would be AGS 2, and then accelerated AGS 3. And then you would get to 11th and 12th grade, where you would have a couple of different choices at the diploma program. There's the IB application interpretations. SL stands for standard level. That would be like a survey course that would be equivalent to a college level course of Math 105, an intro to contemporary math. Shifting over to the right side, if you have a student that is mathematically gifted or has deeper math understandings, they might be joining into Math 6-7-8. And Math 6-7-8 is an accelerated course that covers all of the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade standards in the 6th grade. Now, that's given the assumption that many of the 6th grade learning targets have already been mastered, and so it's definitely accelerated through that. And then they slow down a little bit for the 7th and 8th grade targets themselves. And then that course pathway has you going to AGS 1 by 7th grade, AGS 2 in 8th grade, 9th grade is accelerated AGS 3, and then you get into pre-calculus in the 10th grade. And that really sets you up for IB math analysis and approaches higher level, HL, on the very right-hand side. And that's essentially your college level calculus courses. And that would be equivalent to a Math 251 differential calculus. The one in the middle that I didn't discuss, IB analysis and approaches, SL1, standard level 1. That is essentially your Math 241. So it's a calculus course in itself.
All right, I'm going to talk about some of the academic supports we have at ISB. ISB, we believe that we have a curriculum where we can get any students graduating with an IB diploma, and the supports are a big part of why we can do that. First off, we have AVID, which is a school-wide teaching strategies course. There's an AVID course that we have, and then we also have AVID curriculum placed into our curriculum as a school. Canvas is online learning where students can get their homework. They can communicate with teachers and that kind of thing. We have full-time social worker this year, which we're excited about. And we also are introducing a wellness center to the school that will be opening up soon, hopefully. And I'm the counselor. There's a 6th, 7th grade counselor, and we also have 2 counselors that work with 8th graders in high school. We have an ESL program, or English as a second language. So students who don't start out speaking English, if English isn't their first language, we have supports for them. And we also have a special education program. Both those programs are things that you apply for or qualify for through testing. And that's most of our supports for the school. Homework. We have a summer reading assignment, which is students pick out one book. I think there's a list of 12 books, and students pick one. And at the beginning of the year, there's an assignment to write a paper on that book or make a project with that. Nightly, we can expect about an hour of homework for 6th grade, and then it ramps up a little every year, moving to 7th grade and eventually high school. But yeah, ISB is definitely a little more academically rigorous, like some of the other people talked about. And that's a big part of why AVID and those types of supports are a big part of our curriculum. But students can expect to do homework every night, like I said, for at least an hour. And that can vary by the student. Some students can blow through it pretty quickly, and some students it takes them a little bit longer. But hopefully through our supports, we'll be able to work with any student. And organization, planning are a big part of the curriculum, stuff we want to support students in. And yeah.
Hi, I'm going to talk about the service part of our learning, which is a really important part at in the middle years program and the whole International Baccalaureate program. We're not just about being an academic grind. We are about creating global citizens and whole people. And every school I've worked at has had some sort of fundraising or charity that we've done. But at ISB, we put our hands into the work. We couldn't do it last year, but 2 years ago we went out. We had a service day, and we went with the middle schoolers and did service, and that was really rewarding and a shared experience that we all had. We do services action, where we show that it's not just about what you say, but it's what you do that makes you who you are and is part of your values and part of your growth as a person. As you can see in these pictures, we've gone out and done a lot of hands-on things. I know on the far left, we were clearing out invasive plants from a woodland, a food project, many types of things where kids get to see the variety of different types of work that is out there. One thing that we shared with students in our advisory class was an interest survey that helped you find community service projects that suited who you are and what you did. So that's something that we talk about on a regular basis.
I think one of the things to add about the service component is some of it happens through sort of required hours on students' own time and in their own ways. Some of it happens within the context of a class, and some of it happens through the students' advisory classes. And similar to what Webb was saying, we have a large event day that we also do in the spring, where almost the entire middle school is out doing service of some sort or not. So we try to scatter it throughout the year. We try to build it into the curriculum and make it a part of who students see themselves being in the world.
Absolutely. We also do outdoor school for the sixth graders. We couldn't do it last year, but we did find a way to do a version of it. We did a shared experience where we took a week out of our standard curriculum and found a way for kids to have some experiences with some people from outside the school, as well as with their teachers. But the way we did it 2 years ago, where we went away for 5 days and had a great bonding experience as sixth graders. And then this year, I believe we're going to do 4 days of it where we go there, but we're not staying overnight. I think that's correct. Is that right, Andrew? Yeah. So we are going to get to do it closer to the way we would like to do it. It teaches, it shows students about where they live and the environment beyond just their neighborhood. It teaches them to look at the world around them more precisely, more compassionately. I know Scott was telling me that he uses this background because that's his happy place, being out in the wilderness. And I understand that. I moved out to Oregon for a lot of the same reasons after 8 years in the Chicago public schools. Great city, but there's not much outdoors in Chicago or for many hours outside of it. But in Oregon, you go half an hour in any direction, and you could be in a completely different environment. And that's an important facet of what we learn at the International School of Beaverton is what a wonderful place we live in.
So there are also some co-curricular extracurricular activities that we are able to offer. There are some student clubs that happen at the middle schools. There's student leadership or student council that happens. I think Tim, you do a Dungeons and Dragons club, is that right? You've got going on?
I'm currently hosting a Dungeons and Dragons club after school in my class. Yeah.
So there's
soon to be during advisory too, I think.
A variety of ways that we also make sure students are having fun and getting to socialize with each other and growing up and becoming who they're going to be. For a small school that doesn't have sports directly at the school, I have been so incredibly impressed by the amount of school spirit we have. When we do dress up days, sort of spirit weeks or dress up days, kids do it, like almost everybody. And not just middle school students, but grades 6 through 12. Some of the best Halloween costumes this year was from our 11th and 12th graders. And so students want to be involved. I think that kind of involvement actually makes them closer to each other and feel more a part of the overall school environment. We also work with some community partners to try to provide some additional after-school activities. In the past, we've worked with Parks and Rec to provide cross country and track and field. Actually, track and field is going to be starting up again in February this year. In the past, we've also worked with Northwest Children's Theater to come in and sort of put on a drama class and help students make a production. And there's some examples. Some of the clubs we've had over the years are right there as well.
So transportation can be a challenge. And so I'm going to try to talk about the two different systems that we have in place to get kids to ISB, and then the ways that we get kids home, and then kind of some of the reasons for why it's different on both of those. So not going to lie, ISB starts early in the morning, starts really early in the morning. If you're riding the bus, you're oftentimes found standing out on the corner of your neighborhood somewhere before 6:15 in the morning. And that bus will come around and it picks up not only ISB kids, but it picks up any kids in your neighborhood that are going to an option school. So it will have ISB students. It will also have ACMA students and BASE students, Rachel Carson kids. And it'll take all those kids from the neighborhoods and it'll bring them to one of three hubs. And the hubs happen to all be option schools. ISB is a hub, BASE is a hub, and ACMA is the third hub. And that's it, just determined on where you live geographically in our district as to which hub you arrive at. So if you're getting to a hub and it's not ISB, then you will exit the bus that you're on and you'll hop onto a different bus that is only of ISB kids, and then you'll be shuttled to ISB. And this whole process will get you at ISB's front doorstep somewhere around 7:10, 7:15 at the latest. Our school day starts at 7:30. And our school day starts at 7:30 and it ends at 2:05. In the afternoon, our transportation is slightly different. Now our school day gets over at 2:05, and that's by design. It's slightly shorter than like the comprehensive high school, but it's so we can get our students from our campus to the campuses of all the comprehensive high schools. And so when school gets out at 2:05, we have 14 buses in our parking lot, and they go. Students would then go to a bus that goes to their home high school. So if you're in the Westview attendance zone, you'll hop on one of our two Westview buses. If you're in the Aloha or the Mountainside or fill in the blank, Beaverton, Sunset, you'll hop on one of those buses that takes you directly to one of those home high schools. And you'll arrive on that campus in that bus about 10 minutes before their school day gets out. And so middle school kids would then hop off those buses and they would hop on a different bus that would then bring them to your neighborhood That's if you live beyond the distance of having to walk home. If you live within walking distance of the high school, then your kids would just start walking home from there. When they hop on that other bus, there will be other kids joining. There will be neighborhood home high school kids joining them that are from your neighborhood and then taking you to your spots. We get to school very early, but we always have breakfast available. And this year, breakfast and lunch are both free. And so oftentimes we'll see kids congregating in the cafeteria, grabbing a bite to eat before they head to their class.
So I think in thinking about whether or not to apply to the lottery to come to ISB, you have to ask yourself some questions. And ISB truly is not for everybody. There's some kids who don't feel like it's a great fit. We are committed to ensuring every student's success that comes in here. And these questions here are what we are aiming at in terms of what we're doing with students. We want students to make real world connections. We want them to become independent and evaluative thinkers. We want them to engage in rigorous accelerated curriculum, and we're going to support them through that. It's hard, I imagine it's hard to be a parent and look at these questions and say, I don't want that for your child. Of course you want that for your child. And I would hope that the students that come here would want that for themselves. There's other questions, though, that I think you need to ask as well, beyond just these ones. One of the things that I mentioned earlier is that I would say ISB has a continuity in learning. What we are very intentionally putting into our curriculum at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level is leading into support for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So we think about a program here at ISB as a grade 6 through grade 12 program. And while not all students stay all 7 years, I think the students who truly get the most out of what we have to offer are those that are here for their entire middle school and high school years. For many students who have grown up and gone to the same elementary school their whole life, all of a sudden they find themselves at a school where they may not know any other students. And for some students, that might be a harder transition. You might be outside your neighborhood, might be all new people that are in your classes because we're pulling from across the entire Beaverton School District. Scott just got done talking about the busing situation. And so if your student is planning on taking the bus, either to school or home from school, it could potentially be a long commute. We are a 6 through 12 school, a single school. And so in the hallways, we have our 12th graders walking side by side with our 6th graders. Luckily, our upper class students, our upperclassmen, our 11th and 12th graders are some of the most wonderful people I've met in schools over my career. But that being said, that might make some of the younger students a little uncomfortable. But truly, the teachers that your students have are also teaching older students. The classrooms are often side by side. And some classes, not so much as 6th grade, but starting in 7th grade and into 8th grade, certainly 9th grade, there might be classes that are at mixed grade levels happening within that same class. The other thing is that as an option school, we're on a high school schedule. And so that means classes are nearly 90 minutes long. For some students, that's wonderful. And our teachers do a great job of trying to break up that 90 minutes and make shifts throughout the period. But for some 6th graders, that's a long time to be in one place. And so that'd be something to consider as well as you're thinking about ISB. ISB is a small school. We have got about 860 students total. And that means over the course of your time here, everybody is going to know your student and your student is going to know everybody. Sometimes that's great to be in that kind of small environment. Sometimes it's not so great. Not all students necessarily enjoy that. As a staff member, as a principal, I love getting to know students in that way. I can't remember if it was Scott earlier that talked about sort of the watching those transitions happen from grade 6 through grade 12 and truly getting to know and see the growth of the students as it happens. Some students don't want to be in that kind of a small school. But I think at ISB, at least, it creates a really special community that actually helps us to ensure the success that we've been having. So these, I think, are the important questions really to ask of yourself and to have your student ask of themselves when determining whether or not ISB is a good fit. So next steps, just kind of some basic information about the lottery. At the 6th grade level, we've got 150 seats we'll be able to fill through the lottery. We reserve 10 seats that get filled during second consideration. And the context of second consideration is that it's a sibling preference. We think, again, one of the things that helps us make the close community that we have is that we have families that come through. And over the course of several years, we might see 2, 3, or even 4 siblings, really get to know the parents. The parents feel like they're part of a community, and our sibling preference helps us do that. The vast majority, though, over 80% of our spots that are just selected straight through the lottery. Since most incoming 6th graders tend to stay during 7th and 8th grade and not leave, we have far fewer seats in the lottery for 7th and 8th grade. For this coming year, we're going to be choosing about 8 students for the 7th grade and 8 students at the 8th grade level. And then we'll have a few seats that we can fill through in the second consideration through sibling preference. If we don't fill up, then we continue to pull, or we don't have enough siblings, we continue to pull from the lottery in order to make sure we are fully enrolled. So make sure to submit the Beaverton School District Common Application for the option schools by Friday, December 10th. If you end up printing it off and having it on paper, it needs to be delivered to the district office by 4 p.m. on that day. The lottery happens on Wednesday, the 15th, and then notifications are emailed out to families on the 16th. If you are selected in the lottery, you need to accept that offer by Wednesday, February 2nd, so we have a sense of our enrollment so that we can begin to plan for the following year. In past years, we've been able to hold shadow days in which students who have been accepted into the lottery can actually come and visit school and shadow another student for the day. At this point, we're not going to be able to offer that this year just because of the pandemic. We are already at capacity in terms of social distancing, and so bringing in additional students is not as feasible. If something changes with the numbers and the metrics between now and February, we'll certainly look into making that happen. But given what's happening right now, I don't think we're going to be able to hold the shadow days. But certainly, if you end up being accepted into the lottery and you still have questions, please reach out to us. Any questions you might have, we would be happy to answer. I think I mentioned all that about second consideration. And then if second consideration doesn't fill up, we go back to the original application pool to fill up any remaining spaces. And sometimes that happens throughout the summer. Students who think they're going to come back end up moving or end up deciding something different. And sometimes spaces will open up through the summer and even into September of that year. And so we reach out to families to ensure that we continue to have full enrollment. So the last thing I want to share with you, and I don't know if you've seen this already on our website, but we had a video made of our celebration of the International Day of Peace, which was in September 23rd this year, in which our school was able to come together to express some of the values that we hold and to share kind of in a brief moment together as a whole school. So it's about a 2-minute video, which I'll play that. And then after that, we'll take any questions. So feel free, if you haven't already, to start putting questions in the chat, and then we'll spend a little bit of time answering whatever questions you might have. But first, I want to play this.
Are you guys ready for peace? Yes!
I am Andrew Guilford. I am the principal at the International School of Beaverton, part of the Beaverton School District. So we are taking our entire student body and we are going out onto our field, and we're going to be making a gigantic peace sign out there.
I actively embrace the promise of a peaceful world by picking up after our community and caring for others and helping them in need.
I actively embrace the promise of a peaceful world by challenging outdated definitions of peace and by committing to accept diverse cultural expressions.
So today we are celebrating the International Day of Peace. And that connects a lot to our mission here at the International School of Beaverton. We try to create compassionate world citizens.
I actively embrace a peaceful world by advocating for what I believe in and standing up for myself and others.
I actively embrace the promise of a peaceful world by treating everyone how I want to be treated, no matter their race, color, or religion.
It is rare that we're actually able to bring our whole school together. We have students from 48 different language groups. We have students of multiple ethnicities, multiple religions, multiple races, and being able to connect those students to each other and have those students sit down in class together and laugh and play and learn is the first steps in actually creating that peaceful world. Okay, so at this time, we're happy to answer any questions. I think Tim is monitoring the chat. And Tim, let us know what's out there and what we can address.
And I put the answer Scott typed in the chat in the YouTube chat, but maybe you want to verbalize it for the video. It was regarding math placement, how it's determined.
Yeah, so that's one thing I didn't cover. That we had two tracks, the math 6-7 and the math 6-7-8, and how do you determine if you're prepared for the math 6-7-8 or not? And I can say that in general years, we look at a variety of indicators, everything from tag identification to state testing scores to previous success in math from whichever elementary school you're going to sometimes if teachers provide any kind of teacher feedback on the report cards or even or otherwise. And we try to get a good sense of the student's math ability. Now, if we get that wrong, at the beginning of the year, we do pre-testing with all of our students in math. We just pre-assess them to see where are they with their abilities, where are the holes, is this the right placement, whether it's in the math 6-7 or the math 6-7-8, and we will adjust accordingly based on based on those pieces.
I'm going to read another question that's in the chat. This question asks, what is the average class size, and do you know the rough percentage of girls versus boys?
Do you want to answer that, Andrew? Or do you want me to take it?
I can answer that.
Okay.
While we are a small school, we don't necessarily have small class sizes. So it would not be unusual to have class sizes in the mid-30s, sometimes higher, depending upon what that course is and how the schedule falls. Because we have the elective at ISB is our program as a whole, so to speak. And because we offer so few electives, it results in a very tight schedule for students, and which sometimes does weird things to class sizes. So mid-30s is pretty typical. Not unusual, certainly not unusual at all. PE classes are going to be slightly larger. Choir and band classes are going to be larger than that as well. What was this, Tim? What was the second part of the question?
If you know the percentages of male versus female students.
Yeah, not off the top of my head. Scott, do you have a sense off the top of your head?
It's generally 55-45. We have in most years, we typically have slightly more females than we have males, but it's pretty close to a 50-50, but it's actually more of a 55% female, 45% male. That's what it's generally been over the last several years.
Currently no other questions in the chat, but I'm sure we'll wait a few moments to give people time.
Maybe just to, as I know we kind of talked in a lot of generalities throughout the presentation, maybe Tim briefly and Webb briefly, I can just get the two of you to share. Here's an example of something that we did in class recently to give parents a sense of some of the things that are happening in your course. That or maybe make it unique or are specific to ISB?
Sure, I'll start. I guess I'm a good person to ask this question since I do teach sixth graders, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of sixth grade parents in the chat or watching on YouTube right now. One of the things that we do in the language arts department is that we read a text from translation. What that means is that as a class, we read the same book. Usually it's a shorter book, so it's not taking up long chunks of time to get through, but it's a text that its original language was something other than English. Now we read it in a translated version in English, but it's a text that comes from somewhere else around the world. In sixth grade, we read a book called Iqbal, and we discuss social issues around the story, pertaining especially to child labor and things like that. In 7th grade, we read a book called Red Scarf Girl, which is it's a memoir about a girl who's like in 6th or 7th grade, and she grows up in China during the Cultural Revolution, and as an activity, or like as an end kind of thing that we do, every year I've been at ISB, we've had the opportunity to have a Skype or a Zoom session with the author and main character of the memoir, Ji Li, and she lives in San Francisco, and she answers the kids' questions and gives us more details or fills in the blanks about the book, talks about what it takes to become a published author, and things like that. So in other schools I've taught at, I've not had the freedom to read a whole book with my class. And I really appreciate that I'm able to do that at ISB, and that it's a book that emphasizes some other multicultural facet, or is from another part of the world, or teaches something about history, or just gives the kids a new lens to look at the world through. So that's something that I don't think happens in every middle school, and that I think is special about language arts curriculum at ISB.
I teach 6th grade as well, mostly. And I will say that one of the first things I teach them is how to do science. And it's not just about learning the facts of science. There is that aspect to it, but it's really about how to think as a scientist. And one of the things we did was something quite simple. We took droppers and we saw how many drops of water you can put on a penny. And we teach them through that to gather data. We teach them and then to see how to make averages. We even taught about how to put data in a spreadsheet and see what we can do with it. With the same experiment, they got to find a variation on that. Would the front of a penny hold as much as the back of a penny? What about a penny versus a nickel, or a penny versus a Canadian penny? What if they put a drop of soap in the water, and what would happen then? So it teaches them to ask questions and to realize that the process of science never ends. I always tell them that we're all going to have to deal with science in life. So, someday, somehow, you're going to have to deal with a technical issue, a medical issue, or something, and you're going to have to realize how scientists think, and that's a big part of what we talk about. We also get and so they had a lot of fun with it, just with pennies and drops of water. I mean, science is so available to them all around them, and that's one of the things I want to teach. If we get to go to, it looks like we're going to get to go to our door school, and we're going to tie that into some of the stuff that we're going to learn about the world around us, the ecosystems and things like that. And that's pretty exciting. And so they'll hopefully get to see that a little more in action than unfortunately they didn't get to do last year. But this year it sounds like we're going to, and that's exciting.
I got a couple more questions in the chat. I'll just ask them in the order received. Here's the first one. If a student is coming from a dual language program, can they return to Spanish? At what grade would that typically happen?
So we do have language assessments for students that have previous language experience. So if they're coming from a dual language or an immersion language, they would be assessed, and then from that assessment, it would be determined what approximate level they would be at. So they might come in at, like, say, Spanish 3 or Spanish 4 or Spanish 2, depending on how much experience they've had before that. And it's not just a conversational, but it's speaking, listening, writing, and reading. And so it's a full-blown assessment of their language skills. And they would probably be taking so they would get, after that assessment and that determination, that would then say what entry point they could come back to that language. In this case, Spanish. If it was Spanish 3, then for their 7th grade and their 8th grade year, they would be choosing a different language. They'd be choosing Japanese or Mandarin to use to learn for the next couple of years. And then when their age level peers caught up to their level, then they would be able to rejoin that language at that time. So it's individualized, and it's not just a one canned. At 9th grade, you can join back in. It really is individualized per kid's ability.
Next question is, how many students typically apply to go to ISB?
I'm going to jump in here as well. So in years past, in traditional years, we will have upwards of 400 to 500 students applying specifically for the 6th grade for 150 spots. And so you have a 1 in 4, 1 in 5, so 1 in 4, 1 in 3. So you are, truly winning the lottery.
I'll answer the next question. It asks about after-school clubs, or are they included during the school day? We do have after-school clubs. I mentioned earlier that I host a D&D club after school, but one of the focuses we're having this year as a staff is including club meetings during the school day, specifically during our advisory time on Wednesday and Thursdays. So the answer is hopefully we will have schools be meeting during the school days because of the transportation issue. We want to make sure that all kids have an opportunity to be a part of a club and feel connected to ISB in more than just an academic way, but a social way as well. So if your student can attend an after school club, great. If they can't, we're trying to offer something within the school day that they can be a part of, and so they feel connected. The next question is, are you accepting any 6th graders at this year's semester break? And for 7th grade and beyond, are students required to take 1 or 2 languages?
First part of that question, we're not accepting any 6th graders at the semester break, just because we're full enrollment. Unless there was a significant drop of students choosing to leave the semester, we're going to stay where we are at for this year. Can you repeat the second question?
Sure. The second question is about foreign language after 7th grade. I think they might be clarifying, are students required to take 1 or 2 languages starting at 7th grade and beyond?
Yeah, so 6th grade is sort of a sample year where you get to choose 2 of the 3 to try out for a short period of time. In 7th grade, you commit to 1 world language. And so in 7th grade, you'd be taking 1 language in addition to English. Obviously, English class happens at every level, but only 1 language at that point. There might be some opportunities to take multiple languages, take 2 different languages when you reach the junior year, depending upon if you do something called self-taught or not. But that would be down the line and require a pretty substantial background in one of those 2 languages. So it's just 1 language. Students do change, but then obviously that sets you back in terms of the level that you'd be entering at. If you started at in a language in 7th grade and stay with that language all the way through high school, you'd be able to do the higher level at the junior and senior year of that language.
The next question has to do with wondering about the statistics for 7th graders applying, and then also the chances of winning the lottery as trying to enter as a 7th grader as opposed to a 6th grader.
We have very few spots at the 7th and 8th grade level. With that said, we don't have a lot of applicants either. I mean, we don't have 400, 500 like we do at the 6th grade level. We've got, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's generally well under 100 students that apply, well under. So your chances are still, it's still a lottery, and it's still, I mean, because we have a total of, 6 to 8 in any given year, 6 to 8 spots at the 7th grade and 8th grade level. And so It's still going to be maybe a 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 6, depending on that year, how many kids at that grade level apply. Generally speaking, once kids come in 6th grade and they get admitted, they generally stay minimally through their middle school experience. Sometimes life experiences happen and life happens and kids move away or this, that, and the other. And we do have a few spots that open up, but in general, it's a pretty stable population of students.
So far, no other questions have popped up.
Okay, well then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Appreciate your time. As other questions occur to you, please feel free to reach out to us. There's a general info email on the website that kind of gets filtered towards the best person to answer the question when it comes in. So feel free to use that. I think our general contact information is also on there if you want to reach out to anybody specifically. Look forward to talking with you more. Once again, thank you so much for being here tonight. And I think I can say on behalf of all of us, actually, I had a conversation with Tim earlier today, and I said, so Tim, what are you going to do for the next 15 years of your career? And he said, I'm staying right here at ISB. This is a school that we love and has done some amazing things. And we continue to want to build on that into the future. So thank you so much for being here and have a great evening.